Hi, I'm Jessica, and I'm excited to come to you today and share a little bit about marriage after loss, marriage after child loss, and just a little bit about me so you understand where I'm coming from. My husband Jack and I lost our first son after he had been alive for only 17 days. And we had been married about 4 years, just a little over 4 years at the time. It was the first big bump we hit in our marriage, and now fast forwarding to where we are now, we've been married almost 16 years, and it is still the biggest bump we've experienced in our marriage. It caused lots of other bumps, but that was the biggest one. And if you have been grieving for even 5 minutes, if you are even 5 minutes into a loss, you have learned, and you understand very well, that men and women grieve very differently. Human beings grieve very differently. All people grieve differently. And there is no set timeline for grief. I felt like in the beginning, it was virtually impossible to communicate even how I felt, to communicate my own grief, because I didn't understand it. And we don't learn how to grieve well as people. Our culture, our community, our society, we don't learn how to do this well. When we're children, we don't know how to do this well as adults. And unless and until you are engaging in some kind of professional therapy or some sort of organized support, like this beautiful ministry right here on this page, it's hard to really know what to do with everything in here and everything that comes out here that you feel like you can't control. So when Jack and I found ourselves in the real pit of grief, it's like we both were experiencing the same loss, but in a very different way. And I didn't understand what he was experiencing. He didn't understand what I was experiencing. And we didn't have the tools and the language to really articulate it to each other. And so it ended up feeling that process of grief, even though we were both grieving and mourning the same thing, the loss of our son, it just felt like we were in different stratospheres. It's like we weren't even on the same planet. And so my encouragement to you, if you feel like you are walking this road alone, first and foremost, you are not alone. You're never alone. You are never alone. Grief feels very lonely, but you are never alone. And so if there is a way that you can reach out to learn, to dig into the resources available through Hope Family Care Ministries, through books and resources, which are, there are tons of great resources out there. A great counselor can help. A pastor can help. But digging into some of those resources to help give yourself some tools and language to articulate how you are feeling, the better you can understand what you are feeling, the better you can link arms and grab hands with your spouse, even if you don't really understand what they're experiencing. But the better you can grab their hand and say, I don't understand, but we're in it together. And I think something that was really a big barrier for me personally was I got stuck on the parts of grief that felt really ugly to me. I got stuck on the parts that, didn't feel like, the stuff that you wanted to put on social media. I wanted to be able to tell the victory story. I wanted to be able to tell the miracle story, because everything about our son's life was a miracle. But what didn't feel so shiny and redemptive was the anger that I felt, and the depression that I felt, and the crazy that I felt as a mother who had lost her child. And instead of processing those things in a healthy way, instead of journaling, instead of talking about it, instead of getting it out, I stuffed it real far down, and it just festered. And that anger turned into more anger, and that anger turned into pain, and that pain turned into resentment. And as it goes with everything in your marriage, that yuck that we don't deal with, we end up taking out on the nearest person, the safest person, and that's our spouse. And so by not taking care of my own stuff, it ended up creating a divide between us, and just this canyon between us, that as we got further along into our marriage and, our life got more complex and we added more children to our family and work changes and a move and the pressure of just life and living and having a family, it got it got hairy for us. And we ended up having to, close to 7 or 8 years later, we had to deal with some of the stuff in the beginning that we didn't deal with in the beginning. And thank goodness for a great counselor, someone that we trusted, who was willing to help us develop the language and the tools that we needed. And so if you feel like you are struggling through this grief experience and without the support of your spouse, or maybe lacking the tools to communicate effectively with your spouse, I would love to offer you some tools and point you in the right direction. My biggest encouragement is that the ugly stuff, it's just there. There's ugly stuff in the grieving process, but we can't be scared of it. It's all divinely given. This whole grieving process is all divinely given. God knows exactly what he was doing when he created our hearts and souls. He knew exactly what he was doing when he created the relationship between us and our spouses. There are no mistakes. It's not easy. None of it's easy, but there are no mistakes there in that design. But what we have to be willing to do is to work through what's going on in here, and to be able to communicate effectively here, and to not judge one another for where the other one is on the path. I think that can be tricky, feeling resentful or judgmental because, well, he's fine today. Well, no, he's not. He may look fine, but he's not fine. And you may look fine some days, but you're not fine. And remembering that there are some parts of the grief journey where you may be on one path, your spouse may be on another, and the closest you can get is to say, I see you over there. Can't really get to you right now, but I see you over there, and we're in this together. So I'm sending much love, much prayer your way. I hope that wherever you are in your grief journey right now, that in some way, even if you have no idea how to communicate with them, that you can grab hands with your spouse, that you can let them know, give them the comfort of knowing, I'm here, you're not alone, we're in this together, and we're gonna make it out to the other side. Some skinned knees, bloody knees, tear-stained cheeks and all. We're gonna make it together to the other side. Hope you have a wonderful day.